In a striking legal maneuver that raises questions about corporate accountability and consumer rights, Tesla has been embroiled in a series of lawsuits against customers and journalists in China, with the company largely emerging victorious. A recent review by the Associated Press reveals that Tesla has prosecuted at least 6 customers and multiple media outlets over complaints regarding vehicle defects and negative coverage. The outcome has often tilted in favor of the automaker, with courts siding with Tesla in the majority of cases. One notable instance involves Zhang Yazhou, who experienced a traumatic crash in her Tesla Model 3 that she attributes to brake failure. Following her public complaints about the incident, Tesla retaliated by suing her for defamation, successfully securing a court ruling that ordered Zhang to pay over $23,000 in damages and issue a public apology. This case is emblematic of Tesla's aggressive legal strategy in China, where the company has leveraged its influence and connections to the ruling Communist Party to quash dissent and limit scrutiny. The legal landscape in China is markedly different from that in the United States, where automakers typically refrain from suing their customers. Tesla's approach highlights a unique intertwining of corporate power and governmental support, enabling the company to navigate a system where regulators, media, and judicial elements are often aligned with the interests of the state. As a result, Tesla has enjoyed favorable treatment, including substantial tax breaks and regulatory advantages, contributing to its financial success in the region. Over the past few years, Tesla has seen significant growth in China, a market that has become increasingly vital for its global strategy. Under the leadership of Elon Musk, the company has secured low-interest loans and navigated a regulatory landscape that has allowed it to retain complete control over its operations, an extraordinary feat for a foreign automaker. In fact, Tesla's Shanghai factory has become a symbol of its success, representing a flourishing partnership that benefits both the company and the Chinese government. However, the consequences of Tesla's legal tactics extend beyond mere corporate interests. Customers like Zhang have faced immense pressure both legally and socially, as Tesla has been accused of using its legal might to intimidate dissenters. This has created a chilling effect, discouraging consumers from voicing legitimate concerns about safety and quality. Zhang's experience is not isolated. Numerous customers have reported difficulties in obtaining recourse for alleged vehicle malfunctions, with a staggering 90% of civil cases involving Tesla being decided in favor of the company. Tesla's strategy of targeting both customers and journalists has raised alarms among advocates for consumer rights. Critics argue that such practices not only undermine transparency but also erode trust in the automotive industry as a whole. The sheer volume of legal actions taken against critics indicates a broader attempt to control the narrative surrounding the company's operations and products. As Tesla continues to expand its footprint in China, the implications of its legal strategies will likely have lasting effects on consumer relations and regulatory practices. The company's relationships with government officials, particularly with key figures like Li Chang, the Chinese premier, suggest that Tesla's influence in the region is likely to persist. This situation creates a complex dynamic, where the pursuit of profit may come at the expense of accountability and consumer trust. Looking ahead, it remains to be seen how this legal environment will evolve and whether Tesla will face increased scrutiny from consumers, regulators, and the media. As electric vehicle adoption accelerates globally, the balance between corporate power and consumer rights will be critical in shaping the future of the automotive industry, particularly in markets like China, where such dynamics are still being defined. In an era where international relations are increasingly defined by rivalry and suspicion, the rhetoric surrounding the China threat has permeated American politics, often with destabilizing consequences. A recent opinion piece in the South China Morning Post by Alex Lowe highlights the alarming implications of framing China as America's foremost adversary, suggesting that this narrative not only undermines democratic values but also threatens global stability. This perspective is echoed in the newly published book The Rivalry Peril: How Great Power Competition Threatens Peace and Weakens Democracy by Van Jackson and Michael Brennis, which argues that the hyper-focus on China is detrimental to the political fabric of the United States. During his Senate confirmation hearing, Secretary of State Marco Rubio characterized China as America's biggest threat. This notion has become a mandatory mantra for political elites, creating a climate where deviation from this line can lead to accusations of being soft on China. Such rhetoric is not without consequences. It promotes a self-fulfilling prophecy that can exacerbate tensions between the two nations. As Lowe points out, the more the U.S. portrays China as a threat, the more likely it is that China will perceive the U.S. as a hostile entity. This cyclical reinforcement of animosity can lead to heightened nationalism within China, further complicating bilateral relations. The authors of The Rivalry Peril contend that this adversarial narrative facilitates the rise of demagoguery and jingoism within American politics, diverting attention from pressing domestic issues. They argue that the fixation on external threats compromises civil liberties, empowers anti-democratic voices, and fuels societal violence. The authors assert China rivalry favors demagogues and jingoists in domestic politics, even as it perverts U.S. grand strategic thinking. Such dynamics not only endanger American democracy but also contravene the very principles that the U.S. seeks to uphold in its foreign policy. The implications of this narrative extend beyond domestic politics. A recent article in The Diplomat discusses China's controversial plans to construct the world's largest hydropower dam on the Yarlung-Tsangpa River in Tibet, a project that has ignited geopolitical tensions, particularly with India. The proposed dam, which aims to generate 60 gigawatts of electricity, has raised concerns over its environmental impact and potential disruptions to water flow in downstream countries, as India relies on the river for a significant portion of its water supply. Any alteration in its flow could have severe repercussions for agriculture and local communities. China's foreign ministry has attempted to reassure neighboring countries about the project's safety, claiming that it will not adversely affect downstream regions. Nonetheless, India remains vigilant and has initiated its own hydroelectric projects in response to China's ambitions, exemplifying how the rivalry between the two nations can escalate into broader conflicts over shared resources. The backdrop of these developments is China's broader energy strategy, which emphasizes hydropower as a key component of its transition to renewable energy. With ambitious carbon neutrality goals set for 2060, the Chinese government is keen on harnessing the hydropower potential of Tibet to meet its energy demands. However, local communities have often borne the brunt of such development projects, leading to significant environmental and social challenges. As the international community grapples with the implications of these power dynamics, the necessity for robust dialogue and cooperation becomes increasingly critical. The current trajectory suggests that without meaningful engagement, the competitive narratives could lead to not just domestic instability within the United States but also exacerbate tensions across Asia. In conclusion, as the U.S.-China rivalry continues to shape global politics, the consequences of escalating rhetoric and policy decisions will likely reverberate far beyond their borders. The urgent need for a re-evaluation of these narratives and a push for diplomacy is paramount, not only to preserve democratic values at home but also to foster a more stable international environment. The coming years will be crucial in determining whether these nations can navigate their differences through dialogue or if they will remain locked in a cycle of confrontation. As China's population ages and medical costs rise, the country's health insurance funds are facing unprecedented strain. Major cities, including Beijing and Tianjin, have reported alarming deficits in their government-run health insurance schemes, raising concerns about the sustainability of the system. In 2024 alone, Beijing's basic medical insurance fund experienced a shortfall of 525.6 million yuan, approximately $72 million, while Tianjin's deficit reached a staggering 1.36 billion yuan. This trend is not isolated. Other significant economic hubs such as Shandong, Henan, and Shanghai have also reported troubling deficits in recent years. The crux of the issue lies in the interplay between an aging population and rising healthcare costs, which have been exacerbated by longer lifespans and increased spending on chronic disease treatments. Unlike mandatory employee insurance, the basic medical insurance BMI for residents is voluntary. leading to a troubling trend where healthier individuals, particularly in low-income or rural areas, are opting out of the system as premiums increase. This reluctance could further destabilize the already fragile health insurance funds, prompting analysts to call for significant reforms to restore financial balance. The challenges facing China's health insurance system reflect broader economic trends as the nation grapples with a dual economy characterized by a booming export sector and a domestic market struggling under the weight of debt and stagnant demand. As highlighted by economist Michael Pettis, while China's net exports contributed a remarkable 30.3% to GDP growth in 2024, the highest since 1997, this reliance on exports raises questions about the long-term viability of such a model. With projections indicating that China's debt-to-GDP ratio could surpass 300% in 2025, the need for a shift towards enhancing private consumption has never been more urgent. Historically, Chinese consumers have saved a significant portion of their income driven by a lack of social safety nets. Individuals bear the costs of healthcare, education, and retirement. To stimulate domestic spending, experts argue that China must establish a welfare state that could liberate disposable income. However, this would necessitate raising personal taxes, a move likely to be met with resistance from a populace wary of increased government intervention. In tandem with these economic challenges, the recent Lantern Festival highlighted another facet of China's economic landscape: a burgeoning consumer market. The Lantern Festival, celebrated shortly after the Spring Festival, demonstrated a significant extension of the holiday spending spree, with bookings for themed events soaring by nearly 20% year-on-year. This consumption surge underscores a shift towards a more service-driven economy, as evidenced by the increasing popularity of technology-enhanced cultural experiences, such as drone light shows. Despite the mounting challenges, China's GDP grew by 5% year-on-year in 2024, buoyed by fiscal spending and policy actions aimed at stabilizing the property sector. The World Bank even raised its growth forecast for China in 2025, citing positive indicators in domestic demand and consumption upgrades. Analysts expect intensified efforts to stimulate this demand, including subsidies and tax relief aimed at bolstering consumer sentiment. Looking ahead, the interplay between China's economic strategies and health insurance reforms will be critical as the country navigates an era marked by both opportunity and adversity. With the economy's future hinging on its ability to adapt and innovate, the next few years will be pivotal. As China balances its dual objectives of sustaining high-tech exports while nurturing domestic consumption, stakeholders will be closely watching to see if the nation can emerge from its current challenges with a more resilient economic framework. In a significant shift in its approach to military transparency and information sharing, China has recently intensified restrictions on what can be publicly shared about its military operations and capabilities. This move, which has garnered attention from international observers, reflects a broader trend of increasing control over information as the geopolitical landscape becomes more complex and competitive. The tightening of regulations comes amid heightened tensions in the region, particularly concerning U.S. military activities and its naval patrols in the Taiwan Strait. Chinese officials have described these patrols as a security threat, asserting that they provoke instability and escalate tensions in an already volatile area. A spokesperson from the Chinese Ministry of Defense stated, "The U.S. must cease its provocative actions and respect China's sovereignty and territorial integrity." This sentiment underscores China's determination to project strength while controlling the narrative surrounding its military capabilities. In parallel to these developments, China has announced the establishment of a new unit dedicated to planetary defense in response to potential asteroid threats, particularly one projected for 2032. This initiative has been positioned as a proactive step towards safeguarding the planet, showcasing China's ambition not only in terrestrial defense but also in addressing cosmic threats. The unit's formation is indicative of China's growing interest in space and its implications for national security, highlighting the need for collaborative global efforts in planetary protection. Meanwhile, in the realm of U.S. defense policy, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth recently discussed his vision for modernizing military operations during his first official trip abroad. Hegseth emphasized the importance of addressing bureaucratic inefficiencies within the Department of Defense (DoD), particularly through the newly established Department of Government Efficiency (DOGE), which is being spearheaded by Elon Musk. There are waste redundancies and headcounts in headquarters that need to be addressed, Hegseth remarked, pointing to the necessity for a streamlined approach to military spending and operations. The Secretary's remarks also touched on the perceived threats posed by China, which he characterized as robust and pernicious. He articulated a strategy of peace through strength, aiming to deter potential aggression while maintaining a posture of stability. Hegseth's comments reflect an increasingly confrontational stance towards China, emphasizing the need for the U.S. and its allies to bolster their defense capabilities in response to Chinese aspirations. As the geopolitical climate continues to evolve, the interplay between military transparency and information control is likely to remain a contentious issue. China's stringent measures to regulate military communications, coupled with its expanding defense initiatives, pose significant challenges for international relations and security dynamics. The U.S., on the other hand, is poised to navigate these challenges through modernization efforts and strategic partnerships. Looking ahead, the implications of these developments will undoubtedly shape the future of military engagement and defense policy on a global scale. As nations grapple with the complexities of information warfare and military readiness, the emphasis on transparency versus security will be a defining feature of the next era in international relations. In a world where every piece of information can impact strategic calculations, the balance between openness and control will be critical in determining the course of future conflicts and collaborations. In recent months, the geopolitical landscape in the South China Sea has intensified, particularly as the Philippines has ramped up efforts to counter China's assertive maneuvers in the contested waters. Central to Manila's strategy is a transparency initiative designed to document and publicize the aggressive tactics employed by Chinese vessels against Philippine Coast Guard operations. This initiative comes in response to escalating tensions, including a notable incident in which a Chinese vessel reportedly targeted a Philippine ship with a military-grade laser, temporarily blinding crew members. This confrontation has propelled the Philippine government to take a more proactive stance in both domestic and international narratives surrounding its sovereignty claims. The Philippine Coast Guard is now equipped with a fleet that includes 62 patrol boats and 90 naval warfare vessels. But it faces a daunting adversary in China, which boasts a formidable armada of over 500 ships. The tension is palpable on the front lines, as illustrated by the experiences of crew members aboard the BRP Sindangan, a 44-meter vessel engaged in regular confrontations with larger Chinese ships. One officer, speaking anonymously for security reasons, described the anxiety felt during these encounters. "My heart beats up every time a clash is imminent." Another crew member expressed a mix of determination and apprehension, stating, "You know what will happen. But it's part of our job." The Transparency Initiative, launched 2 years ago, has become a crucial tool for the Philippines as it seeks to counteract China's narrative of sovereignty over the South China Sea. The initiative emphasizes the importance of documenting confrontations and sharing these accounts with the public to garner both domestic support and international attention. This approach aims to shift the narrative surrounding the ongoing territorial disputes, highlighting Philippine resilience in the face of Chinese aggression. As tensions continue to escalate, the implications of the Philippines' Transparency Initiative extend beyond immediate confrontations at sea. It plays a critical role in shaping the diplomatic discourse surrounding the South China Sea, potentially influencing international perceptions and responses to China's assertive actions. The Philippines seeks to rally support from allies, emphasizing the need for a united front against unilateral and aggressive claims to maritime territory. The broader geopolitical context reveals that these developments are not isolated to the South China Sea. Countries around the world, particularly in Southeast Asia, are closely monitoring the situation as they navigate their own relationships with China. This environment of heightened scrutiny and tension could lead to a recalibration of alliances and maritime strategies in the region. Looking ahead, the Philippines' Transparency Initiative is likely to evolve as the geopolitical landscape shifts. The effectiveness of this strategy in garnering international support will be tested in the coming months, particularly as global attention remains focused on China's growing influence and the responses of regional powers. The situation serves as a stark reminder of the complexities of international maritime law and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in contested waters. As the Philippines continues to confront China, it will need to balance assertiveness with diplomacy, navigating a path that seeks both national security and regional stability.